Right. Hello, Mr. Rohit. Thanks a lot for joining, and it's an honor to have you as someone who is a senior member in the consulting industry, and we are sure that your guidance will be really useful in this regard. So I'll just introduce Mr. Rohit. So he is the strategy director at EY Parthenon, and he has worked at several other big fours like KPMG, Deloitte, and he's responsible for a team of 300 people, and he has actually joined us to tell us from a senior manager's perspective, from a senior management perspective, that what are they looking for in candidates and what kind of CVs do they find, and there are often situations where they find CVs that are, people who are actually maybe eligible or who are actually competent people, but the CV is made in a way that you feel that it's not, it doesn't reflect your experience properly. So it will be a very detailed and interactive session on his perspective as someone who has spent more than 20 years in the industry. And so we'll just start with a few words from your side on what has been your journey so far, and why did you decide to get into this industry? What was the route that you took? So, like, what was the first job that you got? And then from there, how have you moved to your current position? And then we can move on to other aspects.
Sure, Yuganta. Thanks for having me here, and a pleasure to be associated with all of you. Okay, so talking about my journey, see, typically, I come from a very typical background of engineer plus MBA, right? So I did my engineering, and then I worked for a year with a government body called Power Finance Corporation of India Limited. And then obviously, as a lot of you folks, I realized, look, engineering and, is not the best area for me to work in. And I started to look for other options around MBA. Now, post MBA, and I went in for my MBA from NITI in Mumbai. NITI typically, a lot of folks from NITI actually work on the side of supply chain and operations. And typically, once I was there in my MBA, I tried to explore a lot of areas, especially around supply chain operations and areas around marketing as well. And there I realized, look, a lot of my core strengths and core areas where I can actually add value to myself and to the clients was around problem solving. And that's where, consulting started to appeal me a bit. But again, as you would appreciate, look, when you are there in your campus and in a campus placement, it's very difficult to, kind of pinpoint and make your choice at that point of time, what company gives you the offer. But I was lucky enough to, kind of being given an offer by a consulting company. It was Kurt Salmon Associates, which was a consulting company which largely focuses on consumer products, retail, and textiles at that point of time. And I'm talking about quite a long time back. That was year 2002. And therefore, and once that journey in consulting started, right, I kind of started to enjoy and learn a lot. I mean, typically, what happened was that initially, when I entered in there, I realized and learned a lot of new things in terms of the skills that I need to have, specifically around whether it be how do I structure my presentation, how do I structure my Excel sheets, how do I structure my thoughts in terms of interacting with the client. Because, typically, in any consulting environment, it's not just, it doesn't give you too much of time to learn, because, you're right away in front of the clients, and therefore potentially at the end of the day, you have to learn on the go. And that's where the journey, when I started to enjoy solving different problems, being in different situations, trying to understand, what clients are going through, and obviously, working in consulting exposes you to different challenges, different issues, and that's the beauty of it, right? I mean, one day you are solving for growth in the revenue, the other day potentially you end up solving for saving for cost, right? And the third day you may actually be working on a mergers and acquisition. So that's what typically keeps on motivating and keeps on keeps you interested in doing this. And therefore, once I started to do it, the initial 3-4 years, I started to get a hang of how things work. And then potentially it moved on from one firm to another, because what happened was, once I got into industry, typically I specialize into consumer product retail and digital as an offering. Again, there are a lot of new opportunities which opened up. So that point of time, there were a lot of private equities were coming in, a lot of investments were coming in during the time of 2006 to 2010 in India. That opened up domain for M&A for me. That's where when I shifted to KPMG, a lot of my work was around M&A only, which was largely working with private equity companies and helping them evaluate the decisions they want to take in terms of investing in a company. And that's what my core area became. And then around 2014-15, when this entire wave of digital transformation came in, I basically, given that consumer products was an industry which was significantly kind of getting influenced and impacted by the digital wave. So that gave me an opportunity with Deloitte to really start exploring the digital side of the business. So whether it be digital transformation or talking about digital strategy, analytics, and some of those things. And that's the area where I kind of worked close to 4.5 years in Deloitte on that, and potentially solving again client problems. So I think overall, it's been a very interesting journey in terms of working with multiple clients and working with multiple stakeholders in industry as well as in consulting. So currently, I am leading the strategy at EY GDS, and a lot of work that we do currently is focused around M&A and strategy development. And currently, when I look at it where I am today, a lot of work is one is obviously the amount of client interaction, but given the size of the team and scale of operations we have here in India, a lot of my time also goes into hiring people, training people, mentoring people, right? And also trying to make sure that they are well equipped to deliver in the industry. And that's the reason that potentially I talk to Yugandhar and see if we can, for the potential guys who want to come into consulting, it's always good to really understand what's happening and how does the fit happen, to make sure that there is alignment.
That's such a wonderful journey that we just heard from him. In fact, I had a lot of my colleagues when I was at ITC who were in logistics and they were at NITI. So from your perspective, like let's say you do an MBA from an institute, and then you have an option that you can enter into industry where you can work at a company like ITC or HUL. And then there's another option where you can do a similar kind of work. So let's say if you want to get into operations, you can get into ET Kearney and do it from the consulting side. So how does the work differ, and what should a person choose? Should a person go for an industry, or should a person go for consulting?
Okay, so I think Yugandhar, I mean, there's no straight answer to this, honestly, because it's not that consulting is better than industry or industry is better than consulting. I'll put it this way: it's basically width versus depth. So what happens is, typically when you are in a consulting, you will work across multiple problems across multiple clients, which actually gives you that width of getting exposed to different clients, different business issues, right? And typically a lot of business, a lot of consulting issues are basically a solving for businesses, right? So therefore you come from an angle of business. So just to take you an example, typically when I look at the supply chain as an area, right, the consultants would be typically called up to solve a business issue, to say, okay, my inventory is higher, right? Or I want to improve my in terms of I want to reduce my costs. So typically it will come from business saying, okay, I want to either improve my P&L or better my balance sheet side of the business. But typically when you go from an industry, it's more depth, right? So you may be actually handling one function or two function, but going deep operational into it. Typically consultants don't go so deep into it because that's a day-to-day job a lot of people do into it. And that's where the industry and the consultants complement, because typically what happens is when you are in industry and doing things day in and day out, you are deep into it. You are deep into operations. But typically, that's one of the challenges with what happens on a day-to-day function is that when a lot of inefficiency starts to creep in, it's very difficult for you to kind of really understand that these are the inefficiencies which have come in over a period of time, because you have been deep into doing that thing every day. And that's where the external perspective of consultant coming in and bring his weights of saying, okay, I have looked at 5 similar clients, or even I have looked at a different industry. That's how inventory is handled there, right? Your challenge is same, but why don't you look at, I mean, I may be at a Unilever or ITC. So typically, what if I am at a Unilever and an industry guy, I would only look at, okay, how is ITC doing it? How is Dabur doing it? How is Nestle doing it? But when I come from a consulting background, I'll say, why don't I look at, how is Amazon doing it, right? Because typically they also handle consumer products and they handle multiple categories, right? So therefore, the perspective that we may get in is much more wider, and working with industry guys who are much more deeper. Now, I think one of the key things is typically, during my days, it used to be said, "Ek baar aap industry mein chale gaye." Once you are into industry, it's very difficult to go into consulting after that. But now, over a period of last 15, 20 years, a lot of things have changed. So it's because what has happened is, if I talk about 10, 15, 20 years back, a lot of the work that consultants were doing was more around strategy development, was more around, market kind of assessments. But over a period of time now, a lot of clients expect us to implement, which is where the work like transformation and all that has come in. Now, if you are expecting the consultants to implement, you should have people who have done hands-on at different companies, and that's where people from industry fit in. So it's no longer saying, okay, that if I have gone into industry, I can't go into consulting, because that's an avenue always available. Because when you are into industry, you know the things deep inside, right? The only thing that you need to develop is the width, which is working with multiple clients. So I think that's how, typically if I look at consulting, that's how they are trying to maintain a balance between what is working from a width perspective, and let's add depth around having people from industry background.
In fact, a common criticism of so-called criticism of this consulting industry is that they steal the client's watches and then they tell them the time. So I had written on this that they may, so they actually have the watches of so many different clients and
Yeah.
not just one client. So that's how they are able to tell you the correct time by looking at 100 different clients and getting that kind of exposure.
And also, just to add, Yuganta, I mean, see, that was a criticism that even our clients had. See, typically saying, okay, you will come, you will give us some advice, and just leave, right? So that even our clients, somewhere kind of resonated around that. And that's where consulting changed drastically over the last 6-7 years. They say, look, we'll not just kind of give you advice, we'll implement, we'll show you how to do it. And in fact, today, if I talk about either any big four or even the so-called the large strategy houses, the MVPs of the world, they're not just focusing on strategy work, right? I mean, it's now called transformation. So any transformation project can't be done without implementing the strategy. So I think we are now as hands-on as any other guy could be. And therefore now it's no longer saying, okay, you come for some time and leave.
So a very common question that a lot of our participants had is that, let's say someone joins at an entry level in your organization. What is the kind of work that they would be doing? So would it be just, let's say, some analysis on Excel and making some PowerPoints, or would there be some strategic involvement at that level? So would they be able to contribute actively in the development of strategies, and would there be some client interaction? So what should a guy who's just joining expect?
Okay, so typically, if you look at any consulting project, Yuganta, it works like a project team, right? So whether it be an executive director partner in the project, or whether it be the new joinee or an analyst in the project, all of them are involved in the project, right? All throughout. So it's no longer saying, okay, you are a new hire analyst, just do this Excel sheet and give it to me. I'll make the strategy. So each and every consulting project operates like a team, where the team actually works together, right? So whether, yes, initially, if you look at some of the new hires, the involvement would be around analysis, right? The idea involvement may be around research, whether it be secondary research or primary research, but their role doesn't get ends when the analysis of the research ends. They are part of the as much part of the team as any manager or a director would be on the team. The idea is, because if I don't involve them on a project, they will never learn what's done. So how do you make them ready for next level is only when you have them as a part of the team. So most of the guys are part of the team. They work very closely throughout the project. It doesn't happen to see, okay, you are on a 6-week project, you only work for 2 weeks, and then I'll work for the 4 week, and I'll not, kind of tell you what I've done in the next 4 weeks, because then how do I train that guy for delivering at next level? It will be a big challenge. So I think, yes, a lot of new hires do a lot of analysis work, do a lot of research related work, right? But again, it also, I'll say, also depends on what kind of consulting you're doing. So typically, that's true for strategy and M&A. But generally, for example, if I am a part of any operation consulting project, right, that would obviously involve analysis. But a lot of operations consulting projects involve sitting at client sites. So in those situations, the new hires would also be part of all the client interactions, right? So again, varies from project to project. But in nutshell, what I can say is, the amount of involvement of any new hire in any project is as much as of any hire in any area. So we're not kind of differentiating between a new hire or a senior hire.
Yeah, so we'll be taking some questions from the audience. We'll just, before we move on to some other topics. So we have a question from Mr. Sumit Arora. So he's asking that, is it possible to laterally shift to consulting? So he's someone who has 25 years of work experience in the banking financial services. And he's asking that at this stage, when you have worked in an industry for 25 years, can you shift into consulting?
What happens, Yugantar, in case of consulting, look, as you grow up, right, in the organization and in terms of experience, your profile actually shifts from doing a project to selling a project. So the role actually, kind of, as you move up above manager, director, and to a partner, the selling part is much more higher as compared to typically as compared to delivery part of it. So obviously, if the guy who's asked this question can come in and he has connects, having worked 25 years in the industry, can help sell projects, right? And therefore, at the end of the day, can bring in more revenue. Why not? You can obviously, right? The other part is, to this question could be, look, I can't sell, but I am a great guy who can, who know in what's happening in the industry, how it is being done, how various companies are doing. So what we do is, for such of these experienced hires, typically we would, for areas which potentially the firm may be focusing on, we will have them as advisors. So we would typically always be working with a few advisors who would be on our roles, who would come like an industry expert. So for example, in his case, if I'm going to sell a project, say a digital transformation project to a bank, I will have this guy because he has that kind of industry experience. So that's a typical role I'll see. If you have connects, come on board and sell projects, why not, right? You can obviously do that. And there are a lot of people who have now kind of, for example, in our firms, work from areas like Morgan Stanley, people who have come from some of the fintechs and all that as well, because they are the guys who are deep into the industry and know how it is working. But in case you say, look, we are not the best one in terms of selling the project, but I know how the work would be done, we'll have some of these guys as advisors.
So let's say someone joins after an MBA or after any qualification, they join your organization, or for that matter, any other organization in the consulting industry. What does the career progression look like? So do you get what kind of salary growth, what kind of role growth, and what kind of opportunities do you get as you progress. So let's say what kind of opportunities will open up after I spend 2 years in this industry, what kind of opportunities will open up, let's say after spend 5 or maybe 10 years in the industry.
Sure, sure. So typically, if you really look at it, I think so. If you look at consulting as an industry from a overall your learning progression as well as on your career progression, and obviously from a overall perspective of pay grade, it's amongst the best kind of industry, right? Uh, Having said that, typically, for example, if if you spend at least 2 to 3 years. In a consulting environment, obviously we look at promoting our guys anywhere between 2 to 3 years, so you can rise within the consulting your own company itself, right? And there's no limit to growth. I mean, you start from a B school hire, and typically in a 15 to 18 years you would end up being as a partner in the firm, right? And therefore there is a quite a bit amount of I'll say career growth happening over there, right? Additionally, I've also seen people look who after 2 to 3 years of experience, because see, consulting, one from an overall perspective, requires you to travel a lot, right? Because you need, because a lot of projects may be happening at client sites, right? Or even your clients may not be where you work at, and you may need to go and meet them for various purposes. And hence, one, in terms of traveling, two, also it's fairly intense in terms of work-life balance. So a lot of people who feel, look, this is, this is not the way I want to really see my professional growth, actually move to industry as well. So industry is also, there are a lot of these, for example, there are a lot of these strategy roles which are there. I mean, a lot of most of these companies, if I look at corporate companies, have a transformation office, right? So someone, or even a M&A office, right? So a lot of people can also move to industry. So there's the career path is fairly wide open, and you can move across sectors, you can move across industries once you have spent at least 2 to 3 years in consulting. But what I would also recommend you, Kantar, is typically, see, if I look at the initial part of consulting, right? The first 1 to 2 years is a learning time to it, right? So a lot of people get fascinated by consulting in their campuses, come to consulting, right? A lot of people come from best of the B schools, right? But typically, if you close your mind to learning, right, and you think, look, my B school has equipped me with a license to fast growth or great salary, that doesn't happen in consulting, right? So until unless if you stop learning, then consulting is not for you, because every day you're solving a new problem, every day you're meeting a new set of client. Even if you're solving the same problem, a client may have a very different attitude towards how you want to solve it. So I think that's the key. So the first 2 years ideally is when you should absorb and learn, and once you're able to do that, that's when the growth starts to happen.
That was really interesting. And so there's an interesting question that is coming up, that and this is something that a lot of people on the client facing side, or in either consulting roles or in audit roles, they face this problem of the client not cooperating. So let's say you are someone who is at a junior or let's say someone with 2 years of experience, that kind of level, and you find that your own manager, so the partner, has just told you that you need to get this task done, and that requires a lot of cooperation from your client. But the managers at the client, they don't share that kind of enthusiasm in the project as you. And so it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem, especially for people in audit, but even for people who are trying to consult these clients. So how do you deal with it?
So interesting thing, Yogantar. I think there's a lot of, typically when you look at where consultants come from, the good part or the bad part is a lot of consultants are hired by the CXOs, right? So there is always a resistance at a middle and a junior level of saying, यार मैं तो काम अच्छा करता हूँ, ये क्या बताएंगे मेरे को आके, इनको तो मालूम ही नहीं होगा, ये तो नए हैं, right? मैं तो 15 साल से ये काम कर रहा हूँ, how would this guy, junior guy, come and tell me, right? So one, you would have a lot of these challenges. So there are 2 to 3 ways I have seen in industry. How do you really tackle this, right? The first part is obviously sitting with the guy who is kind of stonewalling some of your efforts as to make them understand, look, how this is beneficial, right? So typically, people who have this issue around me versus consultants. So typically, I'm not here to fight any organization, or I'm not here to fight any individual. Typically, the idea is that if both of the organization and consulting firm works together, that's for the benefit of everyone, right? And that's the way we would make them realize, look, I'm not looking for this data to get you fired or expose your inefficiencies. My problem definition is not that why Mr. XYZ is not working properly. My problem definition is much higher than your level in terms of the problem that business is. So if there is an inventory problem, it's not because you are managing inventory, it's a problem. The problem is across the process, right? Whether it's be manufacturing, or whether I look at sales planning, right? Or I look at forecasting. So the requirement of the data is to find where the gaps are and plug in that gap. Is not to say that, look, Yugantar is not working well in this organization, so fire him and everything will work. So one way is to really kind of work together and explain. Now, again, you may have quite a lot of folks who say, who doesn't understand this language, right? Now, here the good part comes in is, look, if I am being hired by a CEO, CXO, right? I always have those ears and eyes open in terms of not being able to get that, right? And typically, if you really look at it in a consulting, so while you may have hierarchies from a partner to directors to manager, but when I really look at any project, everybody is equal, right? Everybody is contributing, and the aim is to the success of the client. It's not the success of my firm, but if the client succeed, I know I can get multiple projects without having to sell and go anywhere outside this firm. So my idea is, typically, if I look at when I am more at a selling role, if I sell a project at a partner, at a client, I want to sit there for next 2-3 years trying to solve their multiple issues. And therefore, my objective is the success of the client, not the success of one single project, because I know if the client wins, I'll get another project easily. So I think that's where we use those good offices of CEOs, CS, telling him, look, these are the challenges. Because what we do is, typically in any consulting projects, we have those weekly, fortnightly updates on progress. And we bring up some of these issues around lack of data availability, or people kind of not giving us the data, or we're getting delayed. So I think the idea is typically to kind of get that. But I think the broader purpose is to work together. Because if you try to say, okay, I'm a consultant, I know because I come from a great B school and I'm a partner in consulting, I can tell you what 20 companies are doing and you are doing very badly. That it doesn't work like that. It's saying, okay, let's work together, because every situation is unique, every person is unique. We'll work together to find the best possible solution for you guys.
So to summarize this point, so your first objective would probably be to convince that guy, and if you are not able to convince that guy, you convince that guy's boss. So
absolutely,
that is the right.
And if somebody was asking here who gets the credit, so typically, if you look at, no consulting companies gets the credit. It's a team, entire team, and the way we look at it, it's not consulting team. It's the client team and the consulting team, because we can't have a success without each of us contributing. So it just can't be, oh, I am a consultant, I came up with such a great, brilliant idea nobody could think of, therefore give me credit. See, my credit, I'm very easy. I don't need a credit. Typically, I get to know the credit because the client gives me more projects. So that's the way for us to kind of really get credit from there.
Just a request for the audience, if you can put your doubts in the everyone mode. So many of you are sending your doubts as a direct message, and the others won't be able to see those doubts. So if you can just put it again as for everyone, so we'll try to cover this. So now is the question, which is the most burning question and the most important question which everyone is waiting for, is that how should I get in? So what are the things that I need to do? How should I work on my CV? What are the, let's say, 3 most important things that I need to do, or what are the skills I need to have to get in?
Sure. So okay. So even before I step into CV, I think the first step is to really understand how the consulting world is operating. So So typically one of the biggest challenge that I've seen with a lot of applicants is that and it's not their fault. A lot of fault lies with us. So if, for example, if I am with EY, they think EY consulting is only one kind of consulting, right? I think that the biggest thing for any of the aspirant is to really understand the various layers of consulting that we do, right? For example, if I talk about EY, I am part of EY Parthenon. Now, Parthenon typically, if you look at it, works on 4 or 5 areas. The first area is strategy, right, which is around strategy development. Second is M&A. So anything to do with evaluation and post M&A is what typically Parthenon works for. Then there is EY, right? So within EY, there are multiple layers of consulting. There is business consulting, which typically would work around the process side of it. There is a consulting called PI, which is performance improvement, right? And typically that works with clients in terms of improving their performances. There is technology consulting, right? Which would typically work on technology projects, technology related implementations, right? And similarly, there would be another three too. There is human resource consulting, right? And then there are other areas around analytics. So the idea is, one, you really understand what any firm is doing. So for example, I get a lot of CV saying, look, I am interested in, I have experience in SAP implementations and those kind of stuff. Can you hire me? Look, sorry, I don't do that, right? And potentially I'm not the right guy to approach. So therefore, you'll have to really see about what is your competence and how does it matches with which part of these firms, right? So understand that structure properly, get into that and really understand. Look, you may be a great technology guy, but you're not well suited for the strategy work. Yeah. You may be a great HR guy, but I can't have you in strategy because I don't do any HR work in strategy. So I think, and unfortunately, all the big four firms, especially the audit big fours, are so complex because there's no similar structure. I mean, you go to KPMG, they will have the risk the risk for internal audit as part of advisory as well. So some of the areas people don't understand that where do I really go. So I think one is get deep into it, try and look into their websites, how they are organized, right? What work they do. So it's not, consulting doesn't mean that everybody is kind of advising clients on strategy, or everybody is kind of advising clients on supply chain. I don't do supply chain work, right? So it's not that anything which comes in there is one pool. There is different pool of people, specialized folks who do it. So one is understand that. Two, I think it's very important that you align your interest with what consulting firms are doing, right? So it's very important that you really look at it. Okay, these are the areas which are my strength. These are the firms which are doing this, right? And these are the folks who may be actually doing this kind of work. I talk to those kind of people and really understand how does my core competence actually kind of gel around with what companies are doing in their real world, right? Third, I think when you typically look at doing your resume, I think the biggest challenge is, I have seen most of the people that they want to put in as much information as possible, right? So I'll see 3-pager, 4-pager running around talking about some mundane stuff they would have done somewhere, right? I see people with 10 years of experience still talking about some badminton championship they would have won in their college 15 years back, right? So I think somewhere it's not just about, it's not that as your years of experience grow, you just keep on adding a few more bullet points and hence the number of pages increase. The idea is basically really understand what do you want to highlight, who you are, right? So typically, if I have to ask you who you are, you shouldn't need 4 pages to define yourself, right? I think a 1 page is good enough. So I think a good 1 pager, which will kind of get me interested into reading more about you, right? So it's like that introduction of a book, where at least I read that introduction and then I say, okay, this looks interesting, let me start reading this book. But if you're saying, okay, I have 20 years of experience, I have done this, and then keeps on adding this, right? Then it becomes it becomes meaningless. I'm not even able to judge if this guy is relevant or not, because what are you trying to say? and obviously you have to customize it. It just can't be the same CV which goes to any, because a lot of industry folks I have seen, the CVs are very similar to they would have sent to their competitors, right? For competitors it makes sense, because if you say, okay, I do daily reconciliation of inventory, right? For a consulting company it doesn't make sense. What would make sense is that you do analysis of inventory, right? uh, and potentially that could be by daily reconciliation, it could be in analysis, right? But if you say this to a consulting company, I do daily reconcile, I don't need a guy who do day, I don't have any inventory to reconcile, right? So I think that's what you need to really, and don't try to kind of mass produce your CV for each and everything that you are applying for.
In fact, there was this recent CV of Elon Musk circulating, and it was a one-pager. So that is the lesson here, that if Elon Musk can have a one-pager CV, you definitely have fewer achievements than him, and you definitely have a lot less work experience than him. And if he can fit it into one page, you definitely
No,
can.
absolutely. See, I think you also need to do a hygiene check, because I see even people, I've seen so many CVs with 5 to 6 years of experience. The template is same as they would have used in their B school. They are still using their B school template to apply, right? And those kind of irrelevant details keep on coming in. Okay, I have done a course in advanced Excel. Look, for a 5-year guy, if you're talking about a course in advanced Excel, then I potentially need to rethink on you, because your experience should have given you that. You don't even need to talk about it, right? So I think people, basically the only thing people do in their CVs over a period of time is just add and add. They never delete, right? The thing is that what is required at an analyst level, a very different skill set is required at a manager level, because analyst you are required to analyze, and manager you're required to manage, right? Not only the internal team but the clients as well. So I think that's the area that you need to really bring into your CV, rather than saying, okay, I was an analyst and therefore I keep on analyzing, but there's no discussion around how you are managing. So I think it's important that people kind of revisit their CV after every 18 months or 15 months and see what is it that I can delete, or what is it new that I am doing, and I delete some of those basic stuff which is no longer required at my level of experience.
So at this point, I would just like to make a small announcement that Mr. Rohit Bhatiani has decided to give back in a way by helping you improve your CVs, and so he's available on TopMate. I will just share his link. So the reason why it's paid, so that the people, it's a very small amount, and the reason why it's paid is because we want to encourage only serious candidates to get this kind of CV reviews done. And before we move forward, I'll just give a quick disclaimer that this is just him giving his perspective. So please do not make any kind of any belief of this sort, that just by getting your CV reviewed by him, you'll be getting some opportunity. So that will not happen. It is just that he, as a senior professional, will be sharing his views on a one-to-one level with you, and help you improve your CVs, which you can then use to apply to various companies. So I'll just put that in the chat box, and then we'll move on to the doubts of the audience, and we'll try to cover the more general doubts which are applicable to a lot of people, and then if we have time, we'll cover your specific doubts. So I'll just put that link in, and we'll continue. So there's so Ayush has mentioned something very interesting, that both of us were talking about having a shorter CV. So then why not have a 5-line CV? So where does that balance lie?
So
Why should it not be half a page?
no. So Yugantar, we're not hung up on the number of pages or number of lines, right? So typically we are more, if you are able to describe yourself in half a page, we are more than happy to look at it, right? So it's not about longer, shorter. There's no right length to it. But I think the idea is, if you are able to make it concise, make it relevant, any length, nothing is big or short for us. So I think that's the way we have to look at it.
I have shared his link in the chat, and I will also be sharing it in the group, and you can, take it. Okay, so I'll just go in. So, anything that you would like to add from your side before we move on to the questions from the audience?
No, I think Yugandhar, what I've seen is, yes, there's a lot of interest in people in getting into consulting, right? I think the idea is, obviously, I'll at the cost of repetition, I'll say, look, it's a huge ocean. It's a huge ocean with so much amount of work being done and different kind of work, right? And not everybody does everything, right? So really, one understand what you stand for, right? So typically, if you are a guy who's great at supply chain operations, right, identify which firm is doing that work and tailor your CV according to that and reach out to those guys, right? Don't reach out to me for supply chain. I can connect internally, but I don't know who is hiring there, because see, really, if I look at it, EY GDS, we are 70,000 people, right? My team is 350 people, right? I mean, it's very difficult for me, and that's based out of 5 locations. A lot of time, I may meet some of my teams at the airport. I don't even recognize it, right? So that's a big challenge, right? I think the bigger thing is for you to really understand the structure and structure your CV according to that, right? Secondly, you know, my if you don't get into consulting from a B school or graduating school, don't lose hope, right? Because a lot of industry folks are moving into consulting, right? So there is this always an opportunity and openness, and the amount of hiring that consulting does every year is huge. So that opportunity is also available. But typically, if you are going into industry, I'll say stick for at least 2 years, learn. If I get, typically, for example, to be very honest, if I get a CV of with a 1 year experience, I would look him like a fresher only, because in 1 year you're just getting the hang of things, how it works, right? You're not expert at something, so don't expect me to treat you like an expert and hire you after 1 year of experience. So what happens is, because the first year just looking around and absorbing things, second year is when you really know the nuts and bolts. After second year, it starts to work, and therefore don't be in a hurry to change, because typically, in consulting world, opportunities would always be available. But if what we really see is, how can you add value to this? And typically, with 1 year of experience, it's very difficult to see somebody adding value beyond a fresher, right? So I think just be cognizant of that fact. And I think there are a lot of opportunities available. So there's no dearth of opportunities. The other thing you have to also recognize in India, especially on the consulting side, there are two parts to it. There is an India consulting arm. So every of these big four, whether you have the KPMG, Deloitte, EY, PwC, they have the India consulting arm, who work only for Indian clients, right? So when I was at KPMG India, when I was at Deloitte India, we only work for Indian clients. Then each of them also have a global delivery center. The global delivery center in most of these cases, other than PwC, is much bigger than in terms of number of people in for the India as compared to the India arm, right? So for example, if I talk about GDS today, EY GDS is 70,000 people as compared to around 20-25,000 people who may be in EY, India, right? Similarly, Deloitte is 100,000 people in the USI function, right? Now the difference is, when you work for GDS work for global clients. They don't work in India at all, right? So I think, just to be very clear, that's the global delivery arms are offshore centers. They are not for Indian clients. And sometimes the work profile also differ, because that's offshoring. A lot of the delivery center guys may not have exposure to client situations, which means they may not be going in front of the clients because the work is being offshore, right? If it has to be done onshore, the guys in the practices may do it. So I think, one, you have to be very clear. If you are talking about GDS or EY India, they're different. They are not same, right? They are different companies with different people. I don't know anyone in EY India today at point of time, right? Because they work a very different market altogether. We don't kind of work together. So I think that's the other thing people should be aware, at least even when I look at MBBs, so the McKinsey Knowledge Center or Bain Capability Centers are different from McKinsey India or Bain India, right? They are the offshoring centers versus the India centers which work for Indian clients.
So we'll just take a quick group photo. So because once we start taking the audience questions, people start dropping off. So we'll, if everyone can just turn on your cameras, and we'll try to cover as many doubts as possible, depending on how much time permits. And I know this, there are so many other questions that we really wanted to ask you, and depending on your availability, if we can possibly stretch it for 5 or 10 minutes, we'll possibly do that. But I'll just unpin us. Okay, so can everyone please turn on your cameras? We'll just take a quick photo. Okay, so I'm just taking it. Okay, and can this be posted? Let's say if someone wants to post it on social media, is that fine with you, Mr.?
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Sure. So please feel free to you can tag me, you can tag Mr. Rohit, and you can tag the fellow participants that you have here, and you can post this photo. I'll be sharing it in our group, and right. So now I'll just move on to the questions from the audience, and I'll do a bit of prioritization. And I know, like some of you may have questions, and supposing if any question is missed, don't worry, you can send it to me, and then I'll consolidate them and I'll send them to Mr. Rohit, and we'll try to get the answers for those. Okay. So, okay. So the first one is, I think that's covered on what kind of opportunities are available, how to shift laterally. What are the skills that you would generally be looking for? So people say that communication is important. People say that soft skills are important, hard skills are important. But what really is important? And in this era of AI, so do I really need to know these tools like Power BI, or is Excel sufficient?
So I think so one thing is here clear, Yugantar. One is obviously, I mean, the soft skills are important in terms of your communication. But I think what is the most important thing is basically your ability to analyze anything and create an insight out of it. So typically in consulting, we have these three kind of filters. There is data, there is analysis, there is knowledge, and there is insight. So four, sorry, not three. So typically, any guy can do analysis. So I can give you data. You can do analysis on it. But if you give me analysis, it's okay, right? Somebody can create some knowledge out of it, saying, okay, this is going up, this is going down, right? But if you can actually go to the fourth stage and create an insight out of it, that's the best thing you can do, right? So it's not just telling me, okay, this has gone up by 5%, this has gone down by 5%, but telling me, okay, when I look at this data, typically in this season, it goes up by 5%, in this season, it goes down by 5%. That's when the challenge comes in. So I think we look at people who are not just saying, okay, because I am an analyst, I will just analyze data. I'm looking at people who are basically, kind of can create insights out of it. The other part is, obviously, typically because, when you grow up, typically at manager and above, you're dealing with CXOs, right? And therefore, it is very important at that level because you can't have infinite time with them. So one is, how do you prioritize your messaging? That's very important, right? You can't have a 100-pager deck and try to run all those 100 pages with them. Typically, if I look at it, I will only have a 3-page executive summary because what is the messaging I want to tell to this CXO, right? I can go with that 100-pager to the manager and explain him how I have done. But what are those 8-10 messages in this 1 hour I want to have his attention on, and kind of try to solve this. So I think that's, if you are able to create insight, give the right kind of messaging, The third part, which is very important in consulting, is your ability to kind of work together as a team, right? So you should be, you may be great at something, but you're not great at everything. And even after 20 years of experience, I'm still learning from a lot of people. So don't come with an attitude of saying, okay, I know, right? The other guy, let him do his work. Until unless we don't work as a team, will not be able to successful. So we don't want individual great contributors. I am okay with someone who is above average but can work as a team guy, then a great contributor but can't work with a team. So that's not at all. And coming to some of the specifics around Power BI, Alteryx, and all those things, I keep on hearing. I think those are more technical things. Until unless you're not able to create insight, beautiful dashboards doesn't help, right? So yes, that helps in terms of knowing them, because you can produce some fancy stuff over there. But the key is beyond this, you should be able to generate insights.
So now on this part, let's say that someone is a fresher or someone who is in the final year. So actually, Karan Verma is asking that he's in the final year of MBA. And when you're at that level where you're getting campus placements, at that point, let's say everyone is in a way equal. So what can I do? Let's say I'm someone who has just completed his year, or I'm someone who is about to complete his MBA. What are the things that I can do? Can I do some kind of courses? Can I do some certification, which will give me an edge when applying for these positions?
So current 2-3 things. One is, see, courses typically when I look at, I hire, or we almost hire 50 odd people from campuses, right? So when I look at the structure of the CV in those campus, courses come in the end, and everybody, believe me, every of those 500 applicant or more than that who we see the CV would have done one course or the other. So it becomes very difficult for us to differentiate who is the guy who's done this seriously or who is the guy who's got this certification from somewhere and I don't know how much they do it, right? So importantly, Karan, what you need to do is, for example, if you have your previous work ex prior to joining your MBA, try to kind of highlight that from a relevance of consulting work, right? So for example, if you had done some kind of analysis, you have done some kind of teamwork, you've done some kind of at least presenting it to the CXOs, try to present it that form of manner. Your summer training, how you have been able to do, right? Because a lot of CVs which I see in summer training is, I did this, okay, I studied this, I did research on this. But the point is, those are tasks. So don't mention tasks. Mention what was the outcome of that, right? So if you did a research, what was the outcome of that? If you looked at operation, a lot of people will tell me, I looked at inventory and led to saving of this much of inventory, right? Idea is potentially, one is in terms of highlight what is relevant from that perspective. Courses, I'll say not even 5% relevance. Most of the relevance would be around either your relevance to WorkX, your summer training, and how well you put in that in your CV, right? So again, coming back to the same answer, if a company with operational experience is coming in, don't put the same CV, because that will not be a fit for a consulting CV. A consulting CV has to be around analysis, has to be around quantified benefits of whatever you have done as a part of either your work experience or your summer internship, right? So I think of it from that perspective. As a consulting guy, you will have to be working on a lot of analysis and a research related stuff. So tell those guys how good you are at analysis, how good you are at doing research, how good you are at working in a team, right? And how good you are at meeting people and presenting to new set of folks. I think those are the things which should help for a MBA perspective.
In fact, actually, this is a very common problem that many people are having, that everyone is doing certification courses from Udemy, and probably many of them are not even watching the lectures. They are just, skipping through and getting the certificate.
No, absolutely. See, Yugandhar, see, I mean, by the time I see, typically in that CV, the courses are in the end. And 99.9% of the cases, my decision is made before I reach there, right? I don't think I have encountered any case where my decision has been changed because I've seen some certification from someone. And sorry about all these attacks which have been pushing a lot of courses
I
on
know.
right? But
So
honestly,
in fact, we are also in the same category, but
right.
right.
Yeah, but I don't think any my decision actually got overturned because I've done a lot of courses on some of those
So,
Udemy and all.
so we are just doing like one thing different where we are involving them in live projects, because many of them don't get an internship also, and many of them don't get. So it's a hurdle on getting that first opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's
So
where we are
I
trying to
think,
be.
see, the point is what you guys are doing is more about awareness, right? More about getting them skilled, right? The unfortunate part is with MBA, typically I see a lot of MBAs who are people who are doing folks who are doing MBA, 60% of them are actually engineering. And they continue doing some technical courses. I mean, those Power BIs and Alteryx, I keep on reading all of those courses. See, if you would have been interested so much in Power BI Alteryx, you should have tried in your engineering profile only, right? There's no point in trying to do something different.
So we have a few other questions. Okay, there are a few questions on. So there's a question on. I'm not sure whether this would be very relevant given your experience and profile. But someone is saying that I want to start my own consulting firm. So how should I do it? Like, is there some way in which I can? Let's say I have 10 years of experience in the industry, and now I want to do it on my own. Is it possible, or is it just a uh, it's difficult, or how should I go about it?
It's absolutely possible. But what you have to do is a hard reality check on who your connects are. See, right? Because you may be great at doing work, but here you have to sell. So it's not about execution; it's about being salesman. Unless you don't sell, you can't execute. So one, you have to really do a hard check of your connects, who will be willing to pay you for your advice, right? So do that. If you find enough number of people who can pay up for what you do, why not?
And there are some administrative questions that, let's say EY GTS is hiring. How do I come to know that you are hiring?
Okay, so we have a career page and we have a LinkedIn page as well. So you can actually look at that and get to know about what profiles we are hiring for. So I think even if you follow us on LinkedIn, you will get all the openings which are there on EY.
And some people are asking on, is it possible to switch your profile? So let's say I have worked 5 years in HR. Now I want to leave this field of HR completely, or I want to leave this field of programming completely, or whatever field I've worked on, and I want to do something new. So is that possible, or that will really set me back?
No. So I think it's possible, but it's not easy. I'd say I'll put it that way, right? Typically, the best advice I will give to people who want to switch field, for example, if I have done coding, I want to do HR, for example, right, is to look at for similar profile within your existing organizations, right? Because that's the best way to really look at it, right? Because if you have been working in organizations, they would know, you would know the organization, and they would also know what your strengths are and how best it could be applied to the new field, right? For example, if you say, okay, I have done coding all my life and I want to do strategy consulting tomorrow, and you send a CV to me, it won't help. It won't help much because I don't even know you, right? And why should I even consider when I am getting 100 CVs in a month of people who have done strategy in their life, right? So the best part is just look at for similar openings first in your organization where you're working, and then broadly work there for 2 3 years, learn the tricks of the trade, and then move on from there if you want to do that.
And I think we'll just take one last question. And that last question is on, what kind of qualifications are you looking for? So are you looking for MBAs, engineers? There are a few lawyers who are saying, I've done law, can I get into this field? And I have done, let's say, I've done BCom, can I get into this field?
So again, you have to be very clear in terms of what field you are talking about, right? If you're talking about my practice, which is strategy service line, we only hire MBAs, right? We don't hire. But if I talk about a broader GDS, we have a function called EY Law, which hires lawyers, right? We have audit, tax, and regular any big four function, risk advisory, which hire BCom, right? So therefore, it has to be horses for courses in terms of saying what is my profile and which function I want to go to, right? So again, I mean, if I look at Big Four, I think we have artists, we have CX designers, I have designers, whatnot. I have all kind of profiles, but not within my service line, in a broader GDS answer. So you look at, I'm not sure if there is any profile which doesn't fit a Big Four. It will fit, but you'll have to find where does it fit. And that's the homework that you need to do. How is it fitting in your scheme of things? Because I'm not going to do your homework. If you send me a CV of a lawyer, I'll say you're not fit, right? I'm not going to find the right folk for you. But so that's the thing.
So thank you so much for this wonderful session, and it was really insightful, and they were really waiting for this kind of a session with someone who is a senior person in the industry. And so if any of you have any specific doubts that you'd like to ask him, or if you'd like to get some personalized advice to him, I'll just again share his top meet link. Please feel free to book a session with him. And from tomorrow we are having our consulting certificate program, and many of you have already joined. If you have not joined, I'll just share the link for that too. You can register for that. You can register till tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon we are having the cut-off time. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you, and I hope this was useful in terms of and probably we'll also conduct more such sessions where we'll be able to know who are the right candidates and who are good fit, and then we'll be able to give them better guidance on how to get into companies like EY GDS and all this.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Yoganta. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So I'll just share the link. So all of you have the link, or should I share the link? So I'll just share it quickly. So this is the link for the program. And yes, you will get the recording. You'll get the recording. I'll try to make it available by tomorrow or Monday, possibly. And this is the top meet link. Okay. So I'll do one thing. I'll collect all the questions here, and then I'll whichever I've missed, I'll try to ask it to him, and I'll give it to you in the group. So are there any kind of other issues you're facing in terms of the messages that you are sending, or any communication gap that's happening? So if there's anything that's not happening the way you want, you can tell me. Because some were saying I haven't received the link for tomorrow. So anything of that sort? वैसा कुछ हो रहा है क्या? कुछ issue हो रहा है? कोई join नहीं कर पा रहा है, या किसी का कुछ internship group allot नहीं हुआ है? Any of those issues? Going smoothly. Okay. Right. So I think most of you have my number, and you have Madhav's number also. So you can contact either me, or you can contact him, and any issue you have, we'll just try to sort it out. Timing tomorrow is right. So that was actually a mail that was sent mistakenly. It got sent with 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's actually 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. It was always 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. That was just a mistake that happened. So it's 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. tomorrow, and then it's 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. on 11. So tomorrow being a Sunday, and then the next Sunday, and between that you have 3 days of virtual internship, for which I'll be sharing the case study. So we've been working on it a lot, and probably I'll be able to share it by tomorrow morning, like around 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. I'll try to do it before that, but you'll get that very soon. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you, and I'll just end this meeting.